Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Wilson, here with my good friend and co-host, Adrian Wright, and this is
The Supernatural and Beyond.
We're here with our very special guest, Merci Schreck, and we've been getting into some really deep spiritual and scriptural understanding of what we have missed in the institutionalized church. So in the previous segments, you were speaking of the 4 different levels of understanding the scriptures. Can you give us some examples of that? I mean, actually from the scriptures?
Sure. And, I'd like to share this just so that you can experience this with me and we can walk through it together, One of the samples here, it would be in Psalms chapter 29, verse 9. Psalms chapter 29, verse 9. And let me share with you what it says and how messed up the translation is, because when you read it in all of these different translations, they say very different things. And quite honestly, if you look at the commentaries, the people, they don't even know what it means. And so let me read this to you. Let me pick the one here from... from the New King James Version. The voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth and strips the forest bare, and in his temple everyone says glory. Okay, that's what it says in the New King James Version. When you go all the way up to the NIV, it says, the voice of the Lord twists the oaks and strips the forest bare. It leaves out deer altogether. And in his temple, I'll cry glory. And then the English Standard Version, the voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth and strips the forest bare. Very similar to the New King James. But what you have here is a translation problem because they don't quite understand the symbology of the Hebrew letters. And this is where we're unpacking it. So yeah, we have the 4 levels of interpretation. But if you don't know the meaning of the Hebrew letters, and one letter is like, it can mean like 6 to 12 different things, right?
Yeah.
It's like hieroglyphs. It's like the Chinese character. When you deeply study that, you'll see man, and it's put it in a way where a stick has to depend on someone, saying that a man is in relationship. He's not alone, And so there's all of this kind of deep understanding. And so what you see here is, if you understand what the deer represents. The deer in Hebraic thought, the deer in the forest is sort of like the king of the jungle, like the lion. Okay. And so the deer is a feminine form of a ruler or a leader. And she's sort of running the forest. So you have a female leader here. And then it's called the double witness, where 2 or 3 must agree to establish a law, but you have a double witness. And so in here, in the psalm, what you have is the Hebrew writer then going and saying, I'm going to re-emphasize this piece by giving the other half of it, which means the oak, beyond any other tree in the forest, is the strongest tree. Right. So it's a very strong leader, but it's a male version, right? And so when now that you understand what those 2 symbols mean, and the reason why in the different translations they took out the deer altogether, because the deer and the oak mean the same.
Okay.
Right? And so if you didn't know that, you would just look at it and you would just put, oak for this and that's it.
Yeah.
But if you knew the context, this is why linguistically you have to know the culture as well.
Right.
The other translations, they got that. They understood that. So that's why now you have the deer, the feminine form, the oak tree, which is the masculine form. Now you understand the meaning behind the symbology, which is allegorical or figurative, and you're actually talking about a leader. So now when we read the verse, it says it can actually, the oak twists. It says that it twists, right? And that the deer actually gives birth. When you look in the Hebrew, it's actually saying it bows the knee. It's sort of writhing in pain to give birth, right? And then when the tree is all being, the winds are coming, it's sort of like twisting. It's sort of like an idiom stating that there's like this twisting going on.
Right.
So what would that symbolize? In the Hebraic mind, as they're reading this, what this is saying Literally, I read to you what it says, but what it means is this: the voice of the Lord turns leaders and uncovers what is hidden.
That's good.
That's the meaning
Yeah.
of Psalms 29:9. Now, if you didn't know all those cultural pieces, you didn't know the Hebrew lettering, you wouldn't know any of it. And you're reading that, and it's absolutely ridiculous because you'll read. It's confusing and it's ridiculous. You can't really put the two together because you don't know what those symbols mean in that culture. But now that you do, here's a female leader and a male leader. It's a double witness. And what it's saying here is that, you know what? God can use those leaders and he can turn them any which way he wants.
Yeah.
And what happens is if the leaders still don't want to do it, that's why it's twisting, or she's writhing in pain to birth something that God is more powerful and he can do with leaders as he wants.
Yeah, that's powerful. And when you read the 3 verses before you explained it to me, that's kind of how my mind tied that in, because I was like, okay, well, this verse says this verse says that. But my mind kind of put together like, okay, no matter what's going on, God has the power to shift it, to make it work out.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, but that's part of, learning to interpret it, using those 4 interpretations.
Yes. So let me do another one for you. And this is really basic. And it's Psalms 1:3, one of my favorite verses. I actually had a vision and a dream of that. It was very profound.
So that was Psalms 1:3?
Psalms chapter 1, verse 3. And where it says, that person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Now, the translators actually put in some of the meaning in there. But when you look in the Hebrew and the literal, it's not in there because they're assuming that the authors know their language.
Yeah.
Right? They're not thinking like, oh, this is going to go all the way to China or whatever, 2,000, 4,000 years later.
Right.
They're not thinking that way. And so what you have here is, again, the symbology that's allegorical. The tree is referring to a righteous or upright person. So anytime you see a tree in the scriptures, it's talking about a person who's upright or a leader, okay? And we saw that with Daniel, the Nebuchadnezzar, when he saw the dream, he says, oh, you were this great tree and all the animals came and did, but you were chopped up into pieces, And it's like, I don't want to tell you this, but, And so the tree is that upright, righteous person. Streams of water is talking about grace.
Right.
That that person is living his life in grace, not domineering, not thinking he's arrogant, he's above everyone, but actually he's living in grace, and he's flowing, meaning he's flexible and bending with the tides, with the different personality types and people in his life and different events in his life. So he's moving in grace, which is such a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Now, in your mind isn't a picture going off, right?
I'm seeing Psalm 23 in my mind when you're talking about that. Yeah.
And
but I'm getting that picture.
Yeah, and fruit is talking about character.
Yeah.
That it's good character.
Mm-hmm. Like
And
the fruits of the Spirit.
the fruits of the Spirit in
Right.
Galatians
And also-
5:21.
And also fruit, like having your children, like your blessings, your children. And in Hebrew culture, the children's were blessings.
Yes, and there were arrows as well. If you had
Yeah,
arrows.
right.
Yeah.
And then a unwithering leaf was a symbology of prosperity.
Right. And
So
strength, right?
In strength,
Yeah.
but prosperity and the healing of the nations were the leaves on that tree. So it's a prosperous thing. So what it's saying here, yes, it's literal in the sense, okay, I see this tree and we can understand that there is this like parallel going on. But what it's really saying to us in a deep spiritual reality is that, hey, if you are a righteous person, you will be living your life filled with grace, with anything that comes your way. And as you're living in grace, your character will increase, which is the fruit, and it will bring you prosperity. Isn't that so beautiful?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And it paints a bigger picture, you know?
Much deeper.
Yeah,
much
much
more
deeper.
rich. Yeah, for me anyway.
Yeah. Deeper and fruitful.
And let me do just one more really quick,
Yes,
okay? This is
please.
going to be quick. Do you guys know Psalms 103? It's the one where 8, where God is slow to anger, filled with compassion, filled with grace, that piece there. The translators, they recognize what the Hebrew word was for anger, and it actually is a nose. literally.
Like on your face?
Yeah,
nose?
like
Yeah.
on your face, nose.
Okay.
And it's actually flaring.
Flaring nostrils.
Right. And so the translators, they do this a lot. They take a lot of liberty. And what that actually means, like if you can imagine yourself being very angry and you're like, and your nose it flares up.
Yeah.
That's actually in the literal Hebrew word, and it's a nose that is flaring. So the translators look at that and said, that is not going to make any sense. So they took the liberty in this verse here to actually translate it into the Greek mindset of saying, this is abstract. So then they did a literal nose flaring into an abstract of emotion, which would be anger. And when it says slow to compassion, grace, and all of that, they did that with all of those words as well. In the original Hebrew, it doesn't say that. It's these symbols, and what they're conveying are these spiritual realities.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's very powerful. And I just want to encourage our viewers and our listeners, like, go and dig deeper into the Word of God. We just thank you, Merci, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us. And it's been a great learning experience. And be sure to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more content, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and now Rumble.